there are truths that lie beyond the memory of history, and deeper than the ocean floor are secrets that time itself cannot erase. From nameless ancient maps to faint whispers in Greek mythology, one name has endured through the millennia: Atlantis. It is not written in textbooks, it appears in no official archaeological record. Yet somehow, every civilization, from the ancient to the modern, remembers it. A magnificent city that once shone like the morning star, only to vanish without a trace, swallowed by the sea without a single word of farewell. What is Atlantis? A cautionary tale, a mirror reflecting the flaws of mankind, or a sealed memory of a once real civilization, with knowledge and technology far beyond our imagination? Let us begin the journey, not just to search for a lost city, but to confront a question that still echoes in the depths of the sea. Could humanity have once gone further than we dare believe, and erased all trace of it by his own hand? When legends challenge history. Among humanity's vast legacy of knowledge, there are tales that seem like mere whispers of legend, fleeting shadows born from imagination, yet possess a mysterious power: the ability to challenge even the most solid foundations of history. And Atlantis is one such tale. For centuries, the name Atlantis has haunted human consciousness with a sense of both and irresistible allure. It's not found in textbooks, it doesn't appear on archaeological maps. Yet it persists, vivid and defiant, in the minds of millions, from ancient Greek philosophers to modern scientists, from dreamers to truth seekers. Why? Because the story of Atlantis, as told by the philosopher Plato over 2,000 years ago, is not just a casual myth. It is unlike any vague folk legend. On the contrary, Atlantis is described in a manner that is detailed, structured, and eerily convincing. It was a massive empire larger than Greece, with concentric ring architecture, canals surrounding the city, a central capital adorned with rare metals and gems, advanced agriculture, a strict legal system, formidable armies, and above all, a civilization far ahead of its time. Then, in a single fateful moment, Atlantis was swallowed by the sea. In a single day, a night of misfortune. If you believe this is merely a literary metaphor, ask yourself, why would Plato, one of humanity's greatest minds, invest such effort, precision, and vivid detail into something that supposedly never existed? Could it be that behind this tale lies a collective memory of humankind, a memory buried by time, but never completely erased? What's even more astonishing is that many ancient cultures across the globe, from Egypt and India to the Mayans and the Incas, tell similar stories of a sunken land, once a flourishing hub, later submerged beneath the sea, a divine wrath or human arrogance. Are these merely coincidences, or are they fragments of a forgotten global catastrophe? Modern humanity takes pride in its satellites, artificial intelligence, and technological marvels. But before we write the next chapter of our future, perhaps it's time to look back, sincerely and critically, and re-examine the legends we once hastily dismissed as fantasy. Atlantis is not just an ancient story, it is an open-ended question, a challenge to the narrow scope of human history. And every time we think we know enough, Atlantis quietly whispers, "You've missed something important." That is why, over two millennia since its first mention, the legend of Atlantis continues to live, breathe, and drive generations to seek the ultimate truth. Perhaps the greatest mystery isn't whether Atlantis truly existed, but this: why can't we stop believing that it did? Part 1. The origin of the legend. Just a moral story from Plato. When we speak of Atlantis, what makes it stand out from all other legends is the fact that its origin does not come from oral folklore, but from one of the most brilliant minds in human history, the Greek philosopher Plato. And this raises a profound question. Was Atlantis merely a moral allegory by a philosopher, or a piece of historical memory cleverly encoded in his writings? Plato was not a dreamer. He didn't write fairy tales. His works laid the foundation of Western philosophy, built on reason, analysis, and structured thought. Yet, in two of his dialogues, Timaeus and Critias, he opened an entirely different door, a story about a powerful, wealthy, and extraordinarily advanced civilization, Atlantis. Plato claimed that the story was not of his own invention, but rather passed down from his ancestor, the politician Solon, who in turn had learned it from Egyptian priests at the Temple of Sais. These priests allegedly told Solon that the Greeks are like children in history, for they remember nothing of the great catastrophes that came before. Atlantis, they said, was one such civilization, wiped out in a single, cataclysmic event. Already, we are faced with a striking premise. This is not a self-created fable, but a story traced back through a chain of tradition, stretching to ancient Egypt. Even more compelling, Plato's timeline for Atlantis to 9,000 years, if for Solon roughly 11,500 years ago, coincides with the end of the last ice age, a period when modern geology confirms that massive global climate and geographic upheavals took place. So, if it was just an allegory, why was it so incredibly specific? Plato described Atlantis with architectural precision, a city of concentric rings separated by canals, connected by exact bridges. At the center stood a temple to Poseidon, adorned with stone pillars, precious metals, gold, silver, and a mysterious material known as orichalcum. He detailed the social system, the organization of the military, population sizes, city planning, all in a way that feels more like a geographic report than a myth. But why would Plato tell such a story? The answer may lie in his philosophy. Plato believed that a just society must be based on morality, order, and harmony with nature. Atlantis, according to him, was one such an ideal society. But as greed, power, and arrogance overtook reason and balance, it brought about its own downfall. Many scholars interpret this as Plato's moral warning to Athens, that any nation, even one as great as theirs, could suffer the same fate if it strayed from ethical governance. However, there is something peculiar. Plato never finished the final part of Critias. He stopped abruptly, right before describing Atlantis's destruction in detail. Some believe he did so intentionally, to provoke contemplation. Others speculate that he knew more than he dared to say, that the story may be more truth than fiction. What's more intriguing, after Plato, no other ancient Greek author continued the tale of Atlantis. For nearly 2,000 years, the story remained buried in silence, until the Renaissance and early modern thinkers like Francis Bacon and Ignatius Donnelly resurrected it, sparking a global obsession with the lost city. Yet, even after all these centuries, one question continues to haunt us. If Atlantis was just an allegory, why can't we let it go? The answer might be simple, or deeply profound. Perhaps because, deep within us, we feel that Atlantis is not a myth, but a forgotten memory. A memory of a time when humanity once soared, and then plummeted by its own hand. And Plato, with his unparalleled intellect, may have simply been the first to speak it aloud. Part 2. The real location of Atlantis. Where did it sink? Santorini, Greece. In the search for the truth behind Atlantis, the legendary civilization said to be powerful and far ahead of its time, the most persistent question that has captivated scientists and mystery lovers alike is not what did it look like, or how wealthy was it, but rather, where was it? Among countless theories proposed over centuries, the island of Santorini, also known as Thera, in the Aegean Sea of Greece, remains one of the most compelling and hotly debated candidates. Today, Santorini is known worldwide as a romantic paradise, with whitewashed houses perched on towering cliffs, contrasted against dark volcanic rock and endless blue sea. Yet behind its postcard beauty lies a catastrophic past, one of the most devastating volcanic eruptions in human history. Around the 16th century BC, a colossal volcanic eruption tore the island apart, creating the now famous circular caldera, burying surrounding settlements under ash, and unleashing tsunamis so massive they may have wiped out coastal regions, including the nearby island of Crete. That eruption was not merely a natural event, It marked the near-total collapse of the Minoan civilization, one of the earliest and most advanced cultures in Europe. Centered in Crete, but strongly linked to Santorini, the Minoans left behind archaeological marvels, advanced drainage systems, well-planned architecture, and thriving trade networks. Their sudden and mysterious disappearance has led many to believe that they were the real-world inspiration behind Plato's tale of Atlantis. When compared with Plato's description, the similarities between Atlantis and the Minoan-Santorini connection are striking. He also said Atlantis was destroyed in a single day, a night of misfortune, which aligns chillingly well with the sudden, catastrophic nature of the eruption. Furthermore, some scholars suggest that Plato may have misinterpreted the original Egyptian sources, possibly mistaking months for years. If true, the 9,000 years before Solon could actually mean only 750 years, perfectly matching the time frame of the Minoan collapse. Still, skeptics remain. They argue that Santorini does not lie beyond the Pillars of Hercules usually interpreted as the Strait of Gibraltar, and that the Minoan civilization, while advanced, did not reach the immense scale Plato described. But supporters of the Santorini-Atlantis theory counter that Plato may have used metaphors, or that the story was embellished through generations, and that what truly matters is the core message: a mighty, prosperous civilization brought to ruin by natural disaster and human arrogance. Although no definitive evidence exists, Santorini remains one of the strongest contenders for the true location of Atlantis. And even if Atlantis wasn't exactly there, it's likely that the memory of the Santorini eruption served as the foundation or inspiration for Plato's legendary account. Thus, when one gazes upon the circular caldera of Santorini today, it's not just the remnants of an ancient explosion they're seeing, but perhaps also the ghost of Atlantis, a once glorious civilization that soared high and was forever buried beneath the ashes of time. Donana region, Spain near Cadiz. When discussing the possible location of Atlantis, the theory linking it to the island of Santorini remains a classic. However, in recent years, a bolder and equally controversial theory has captured the attention of archaeologists and researchers alike, that Atlantis may have once existed in Spain, specifically in the Donana marshlands, near the city of Cadiz in the southern Iberian Peninsula. This is not merely speculation, but a hypothesis increasingly supported by satellite data, geological studies, on-site excavations, and scientific research. One of the leading figures reviving this theory is Dr. Richard Freund, an American archaeologist who led a team using ground-penetrating radar and satellite imagery to scan the Donana marshlands, an area believed to have once been an inland sea thousands of years ago. What they discovered was remarkable: massive circular structures buried beneath the marshland, eerily similar in layout to Plato's description of Atlantis, concentric rings alternating between land and water, surrounded by canals and walls of clay or mud. These structures weren't isolated, they were connected to ancient roads, nearby auxiliary settlements, and potential harbor-like features, almost as if an entire urban center had been swallowed by time and mud. What makes this theory particularly compelling is its geographic alignment. According to Plato, Atlantis lay beyond the Pillars of Hercules, widely accepted to mean the Strait of Gibraltar. Looking at the map, Donana lies just outside that area, facing the Atlantic Ocean. Geographically, it perfectly fits Plato's description, a fertile coastal region, now submerged in marshland and forgotten by history. Furthermore, ancient records from the Tartessos civilization, a powerful, pre-Roman culture that once thrived in the Iberian Peninsula, describe a wealthy, seafaring city that mysteriously vanished. It's entirely possible that Plato's Atlantis was, in fact, a fusion of legend and the faint memory of Tartessos' dramatic disappearance. Of course, like all great theories, the idea that Atlantis was in Spain has faced its fair share of criticism. Traditional archaeologists argue that the circular formations found in Donana might be natural geological patterns or the remnants of more recent, mundane structures. Others point out that geological surveys of the region remain incomplete. Still, even skeptics admit If these traces turn out to be man-made, the implications could shake our understanding of ancient history. If Atlantis truly existed here, its long concealment is not surprising. A city buried under layers of mud, in the middle of a protected nature reserve, with no standing ruins or visible stone. It would be the perfect place for time to hide an ancient civilization. And so, the Donana marshlands lie silently under the Andalusian sun, perhaps guarding a secret that has slumbered for millennia. Could this be where Atlantis once stood? Not deep beneath the ocean waves, but on land, forgotten by history and overlooked by time. If Atlantis was a powerful civilization swallowed by the sea, then why not search for it in the most mysterious part of the modern ocean, the Caribbean and the Bermuda Triangle? This region has long fueled legends and conspiracies, a place where ships vanish without a trace, planes crash with no debris found, and electronics often fail for no apparent reason. With such a heavy cloak of mystery, many have posed a bold theory. Could it be that here, beneath the deep blue waves, Atlantis still sleeps? The Bermuda Triangle, a vast swath of ocean roughly defined by the points of Miami, Florida, San Juan, Puerto Rico, and the island of Bermuda, is not just famous for unexplained disappearances. It is also a region marked by unusual geological features. Researchers have discovered massive stone structures beneath the ocean floor near the Bahamas, including square and circular blocks laid out in puzzlingly regular patterns, as if crafted by human hands. One of the most famous of these discoveries is the Bimini Road, a submerged rock formation stretching hundreds of meters, forming straight lines and even L-shaped angles, which some believe to be the remains of an ancient harbor or city. While some scientists argue it's the result of natural erosion, others find the symmetry and alignment too precise to dismiss as mere chance. Beyond physical structures, the Caribbean region also shares intriguing parallels with Plato's description. He wrote that Atlantis was larger than Libya and Asia combined, which many scholars interpret as exaggeration. However, if we interpret it as a large landmass or island complex in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, then the Caribbean, with its vast underwater plateaus, island chains, and submerged mountain ranges, becomes a plausible match. Some fringe theorists go even further, proposing that Atlantis was not only submerged by water, but also fell victim to a massive tectonic collapse where part of Earth's crust sank, creating a void now occupied by the ocean. According to this idea, residual energy or advanced technology left behind by Atlantis may still be affecting the region's magnetic field, possibly explaining the strange anomalies in the Bermuda Triangle. Although no concrete archaeological evidence has yet confirmed this theory, the possibility of Atlantis having once existed in the Caribbean cannot be entirely ruled out. After all, the ocean, covering more than 70% of Earth's surface, remains largely unexplored. If there ever was a civilization that vanished from memory, the sea would be the perfect place to hide it. It's hard not to be fascinated by the idea that Atlantis still lies there, entombed beneath hundreds of meters of water, cloaked in coral and seaweed, silent at the bottom of the ocean, an ancient soul waiting to be awakened. And the Caribbean Sea, where mystery meets legend, continues to challenge us, not with what it reveals, but with what it chooses to keep hidden. Among the most unusual theories about the location of Atlantis, two names stand out as seemingly implausible, yet strangely thought-provoking: Antarctica and the ancient North Atlantic. Though they may sound far-fetched at first, these ideas are rooted in geological studies, ancient maps, and even the controversial theory of pole shift. Some researchers propose that Antarctica was not always covered in ice. According to the Earth crust displacement theory, introduced by Charles Hapgood, a massive geological event around 12,000 years ago caused the outer crust of the Earth to shift, moving Antarctica from a temperate zone to the South Pole, resulting in a sudden and catastrophic freeze. If true, then Atlantis may not have sunk beneath the sea, it may have been buried beneath ice. Meanwhile, the theory of an ancient North Atlantic continent suggests that what is now the Mid-Atlantic Ridge was once a massive landmass above sea level. Over time, Due to tectonic activity and geological subsidence, it may have collapsed and submerged. Submarine plateaus like the Azores Plateau are thought by some to be the last remnants of this lost continent, possibly Atlantis itself. Though these theories lack conclusive archaeological evidence, they remind us of a critical truth: continents shift, oceans rise, and Earth's history remains largely unwritten. And perhaps, somewhere beneath miles of ice in Antarctica, or hidden within the depths of the Atlantic, Atlantis still waits, silent, patient, and undiscovered. Part 3. Atlantean Technology, Science Fiction or Forgotten Knowledge. As we trace the possible footprints of Atlantis, from concentric rings buried beneath Spain's marshlands to volcanic calderas in Santorini, and even mysterious stone roads beneath the Caribbean, we are constantly faced with a haunting realization. If Atlantis truly existed, it wasn't just a wealthy empire, but a civilization far ahead of its time. And from that, an inevitable question emerges: how could a society thousands of years ago reach such an advanced level of development? According to Plato, the Atlanteans built cities with precise concentric layouts, interconnected canals, bridges, harbors, and social systems that reflected a deep understanding of urban planning. They harnessed natural resources, worked with exotic metals like orichalcum, a legendary alloy second only to gold, and erected grand temples made from black, red, and white stones. If Plato's account is accurate, even in part, then it implies that Atlantis wasn't just materially rich, but technologically sophisticated to a degree unmatched by contemporary civilizations. These descriptions have inspired not just philosophers and historians, but also mystics, esoteric scholars, and spiritual thinkers to propose a more radical theory. Atlantis may have once possessed technology more advanced than our own, and for reasons lost to time, all of it was buried or erased. One of the most prominent voices supporting this idea was Edgar Cayce, a 20th century mystic who described Atlantis as a hub of crystal-based energy. According to Cayce, the Atlanteans didn't use electricity in the conventional sense. Instead, they harnessed energy from the enormous crystals which powered their cities, enabled wireless communication, advanced healing methods, and even allowed control over the weather. Their energy towers allegedly absorbed cosmic forces, a concept now faintly echoed in modern theories of sustainable land wireless power. Sound far-fetched, perhaps, but consider this: more than 1,000 years passed between the fall of the Roman Empire and the rediscovery of municipal plumbing. It took over 2 millennia after Pythagoras for geometry to re-emerge in civil engineering. Progress is not always linear, and there's no guarantee we are the peak of human intellect. But maybe the greatest tragedy of Atlantis lies not in its disappearance, but in how its own brilliance may have sealed its doom. When human power exceeds wisdom, when technology outpaces morality, history tends to end in collapse. And so, the legend tells us that the Atlanteans overreach, manipulating the natural world, channeling vast cosmic forces, and ultimately losing their balance between humanity, science, and nature. If this is true, then Atlantis isn't just part of our past, it's a mirror held up to our future. A warning that advancement without wisdom is a double-edged sword, and everything humanity builds over millennia can vanish in a single day and night of misfortune. Part 4. Why did Atlantis disappear? The mystery of collapse. Though described as a civilization of unmatched intelligence and technological prowess, Atlantis, according to Plato, collapsed entirely in a single day and night of misfortune. No one escaped, no legacies survived intact, and all that remains is a faint name whispered through the memory of mankind. But what could possibly cause such a powerful empire to vanish so suddenly? Plato believed that the root cause was not natural disaster, but human corruption. Atlantis was initially an ideal society, where people lived in harmony with nature, governed by reason and morality. But over time, greed, ambition, and arrogance crept in, eroding the balance they once upheld. When human ego defied the laws of the cosmos, Atlantis ceased to be a place of wisdom, and became the perfect example of self-destruction. This moral lens has led many to interpret the story of Atlantis as a philosophical allegory. But if we peel back the metaphor and examine the question through a scientific perspective, then what real forces could erase an entire civilization in just 24 hours? Natural catastrophe theories quickly emerge. It might have been a massive earthquake, triggering a tsunami of unprecedented scale, wiping out the main island and surrounding territories. Or perhaps it was a violent volcanic eruption, like the one at Santorini that obliterated the Minoan civilization without a trace. Some even suggest a meteor impact, similar to the event that wiped out the dinosaurs. In all these scenarios, the pattern is the same: sudden, overwhelming, and completely unprepared for. However, a growing number of researchers propose something even more unsettling. They argue that Atlantis may not have been destroyed by nature, but rather by its own hand, through the very technology it mastered. Perhaps the Atlanteans had advanced too far in harnessing cosmic energy, geothermal power, or sources we still haven't discovered today. And in one moment of hubris, they triggered a chain reaction they couldn't control, and perished in the fire of their own creation. This is no longer science fiction, it's a cautionary tale. Modern humanity stands at a similar crossroads. We wield artificial intelligence, nuclear energy, genetic manipulation. But do we possess the wisdom to use them responsibly? Whether Atlantis was real or symbolic, its story remains a warning that echoes through the ages. A civilization may rise to unimaginable heights, and still fall in the blink of an eye if it loses the balance between reason and desire. Atlantis disappeared. No survivors, no complete memory, only scattered fragments in ancient texts, and one haunting question that still lingers: did they go too far? Part 5. Buried Truth and Unanswered Questions. Atlantis may have vanished from the world's maps, but it has never left the human imagination. For thousands of years, from ancient Greek philosophers to modern scientists, from archaeologists to mystics, the name Atlantis continues to echo as a memory buried, but never forgot. To this day, we haven't discovered irrefutable archaeological proof of Atlantis, but that doesn't mean it never existed. Because the world we know has only been partially explored, and in the deepest oceans, beneath frozen ice sheets, or hidden within untouched sediment layers, the truth may still lie, silently waiting to be revealed. It is eerily striking that many ancient civilizations across different continents share legends of a lost land, a once great center of knowledge, destroyed by natural forces or its own hubris. From the tales of Mu in the Pacific, Lemuria in the Indian Ocean, to Aztlan of the Aztecs, they all echo a familiar pattern: a place of origin, prosperity, and ultimate ruin. So, is Atlantis simply one among many, or the root of them all? This raises a deeper question. If there once existed a highly advanced prehistoric civilization, what caused all memory of it to vanish from official history? Was the collapse so sudden that nothing could be recorded? Or was there something, or someone, who deliberately buried the evidence to protect a new world order? And we must also ask ourselves, why has the story of Atlantis endured for so long? Is it because it reads like an epic fantasy? Or is it because, deep within the human psyche, something intuitive whispers that we've forgotten something crucial? These lingering questions, even without clear answers, are what make the legend of Atlantis timeless. It is not merely the tale of a sunken land, but a symbol of everything we don't yet know, every possibility we haven't explored, and every historical lesson humanity is at risk of repeating. Because sometimes, the silence of stone, the chill of the ocean floor, or the blank spaces on ancient maps, speak louder than words. And if Atlantis truly existed, then its rediscovery wouldn't just rewrite history. It would challenge everything we believe about ourselves. We have journeyed through deep oceans, forgotten marshes, submerged ridges, and ancient ice to follow the traces of Atlantis, a civilization buried by time, drowned in legend, yet never truly erased from the human imagination. Atlantis may never have existed as a literal place, but it lives vividly as a grand metaphor for the fate of humanity. It tells of a society that once reached the pinnacle of knowledge and power, but because of pride, arrogance, and a disregard for moral limits, it paid the ultimate price: annihilation. Today, in the age of artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, nuclear energy, and the dream of reaching other planets, are we so different from the Atlanteans? When the speed of progress outpaces our ability to reflect, when technology evolves faster than our understanding or restraint, are we not standing at the edge of the same abyss they once faced? Atlantis is not just a historical lesson, it is a mirror reflecting our present, a question posed to our future. Will we repeat the cycle of prosperity, hubris, and collapse? Or will we learn to balance strength with humility, science with conscience? The mystery of Atlantis may never be fully solved, but perhaps that is precisely the point. Legends aren't born just to be believed, they're born to be remembered. And Atlantis, whether it was ever real or merely symbolic, remains a whispering reminder that intelligence without wisdom leads only to ruin.